So before we get to Gary Patterson with Shelby American, I have two big announcements to make here. Now, the second one you'll really want to hear because I'm giving a sneak peek as far as what replaced my beloved 1965 Mustang Fastback Caspian Blue over Blue Hypo that I sold a couple months ago. So that's coming up here shortly. But before that, I would like to announce a new sponsor for the podcast, California Car Covers. Now, they were great in helping me source two covers for those two special cars I have in the garage. For my wife's Boxster S, now that's a 2005, less than 5,000 miles from new and unrestored, untouched. You want to make sure that's kept in pristine shape. I picked a beautiful red car cover that goes right with it. We call her Lucy because she's a fiery redhead and a great car to drive. Now, the other car, as you know, is my unrestored 1966 Pontiac GTO. I chose a black cover for this one to kind of go with the black vinyl Cordova roof. So as you can see, I've got those both covered up. What I love about California Car Cover is the quality of the materials. They stretch incredibly easily. They're very soft. They will not hurt your car. And what I really enjoy is the fact that they have carrying cases for these, and it actually fits in there. And you roll it up, and it's not hanging out. It fits perfectly in the carrying case. Now, on to the announcement as far as what replaced my Hypo. If you're watching online, you'll see it right now, tucked underneath the covered GTO. Yes, that is a poppy red, looks orange, 1965 Mustang convertible Hypo. So I replaced one Hypo with another Hypo. It was somewhat accidental. If you would like to hear the full story, send me your email address to Greg at the Collector Car Podcast, and I will add you, and you can hear the whole story. Now I just need to reach out to California Car Cover and see if they might have a car cover in orange.
Born in Texas with a need for speed, raced the wind and lived by creed. Hard condition, but that didn't stall. He built the fastest legends of them all. From Le Mans glory to the desert dust, he forged his name in power.
RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com. Here. All right, I'm super excited to have Gary Patterson on to talk about Shelby's. So Gary, thank you for joining the Collector Car Podcast.
Man, Greg, it's certainly great to join everybody and, car enthusiasts talking about cars. How bad can it get, right?
Well, exactly. We're going to talk about Shelby's. We're going to talk about Shelby America, Shelby American and what you do there and how you got involved and all that. But I recently sold my 65 Hypo Fastback Mustang, and you responded to me with a really cool story about when you were a little kid driving a Hypo or something crazy. So tell us what happened with you when you were a little kid in a Hypo Mustang.
Well, Greg, I'm still blaming my parents for my problems. So, there's that. And so, yeah, long story short, my dad had a Hypo convertible. He bought it brand new in 64 from a dealership. It was kind of an interesting story that there was a guy in Chicago, or a radio station, that this was their grand prize giveaway. And the person that won it didn't want the car, he wanted money. So my father bought the car virtually brand new from the dealership, who just turned around and paid the guy the money. So that was pretty cool. And it was a Hypo 4-speed, 8 grand rally pack. Okay, so my father had built this little box for myself and my brother so that we could sit up in the back seat and see what was going on. I'm sure it was a child protected safety seat, but back then that's not what they had. So you're lucky to have seat belts, right?
Yeah, seatbelts were an option back then, not the front seats, right? Or were they? I know in 67 they were mandatory, but I can't remember. I know back seats, they were optional. So
Yeah.
now you said in 64, so that would have been a 64 and a half Hypo convertible or very early 65, correct?
Yeah, it was actually a generator car, Greg.
Okay.
So
Wow. Okay.
very, very first of the hypos. So
Yeah, and you said you drove that thing?
I did. So right before Dad sold it in 73, um, and he drove it year round. It was his daily driver in Michigan, and Ohio. And, so it never rusted on the outside, but the undercarriage was starting to, have some issues. And so he said, it's probably a good idea to just let it go down the road. But yeah, so it was 73. I was like just turned 14. And he said, "Hey, you want to take it out for a spin?" And so we went over to a church parking lot and I drove the hypo around for a little bit. That was kind of cool. So that was technically the first car I ever drove.
Wow, what a great first car. That's incredible. I think mine was an Isuzu iMark diesel, so not nearly as spectacular as yours. So as this podcast posts, which won't be for a few weeks, either I will be the new owner of a 65 Poppy Red Hypo convertible, or I'm going to see it next week, or by the time I see it, it will have been just not right and I passed on it. So, stay tuned for that. So, well, I appreciate it. So, high performance Mustangs, engines that went into Shelby's are in your bloodstream from a very young age, correct?
Yeah, so the hypo going down the road, my father actually helped me find 2 years later, when I was 16, a 428 Cobra Jet Mach 1.
Wow.
Shaker hood, 4 speed, the whole bit. And that was the car I wanted since I was 10 years old. I built a model of it. That was the car. And so that was pretty cool. In fact, hold on a minute. Let me get in my cabinet. I can show you right here.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
Now, what year
So
would that have been that you got this crazy car, and how old were you?
so March 3rd, 1976, I bought the car with money I made mowing lawns, and I was not quite 17. So I was still 16. And the serial number is 9F02R152435.
Wow.
And I drove it yesterday.
Oh, you still have it, or do you have to
I
go find it?
still have it. I
Wow.
never ever sold it.
Now, is
So I
red?
am that kind of car guy.
Wow, red with what color interior?
Black, red and black.
Okay, so I have to share. I just grabbed this off the back wall behind me, but I've got my parents, not a 428, a 351. They're
No, look
six,
at that.
their 69 Mustang that they bought in 60. This is a picture of the day they bought it. You can barely see it.
Wow.
I'll overlay a better picture. And so I would love to have a red on red 69 Mach 1. Obviously 428 would be nice, but it'd be fun to get back what my parents had. And there's a 428 red on red car here locally. I said, "Thanks for taking care of my car." And I haven't heard back from them. But I also, strangely enough, have a 3-second video of them in that car in 69 going down a muddy trail, and it has a trailer hitch, and it just tells you things were different back then, right?
Yeah, a friend of mine bought a 68 GT 500 KR, Highland Green, and it's just like my wife's car, by the way. So have that too. It's in the basement too. Yeah, they had a Christmas tree in the back of that car. You could tell because there's all these pine needles and stuff in the back.
Wow, that's amazing.
They were just cars, right?
Yeah. All right, so you've been with Mustangs, Hypos, 428 big blocks since you were 16, and you still own that car, which is amazing. Well, how did you get involved in Shelby to where you are today? I mean, obviously, this seems like it's a dream job for you, and you've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, so I did the college thing and, got out of college and got into retail distribution for a little bit. But, my heart was always with the cars and always had the 69 Cobra Jet. So, I would go to shows and events, and I was a member of the Toledo Shelby Club for a while. And then when I moved to Minnesota, I was involved in the Minnesota, Shelby clubs and stuff there. And so I was always involved in the cars and the car events, and just like any other enthusiast, and I'm sure there's a lot of those guys watching this today, you know, the equivalent of cars and coffee, because they certainly didn't call it back then, but anything I could do with cars, I was involved. And then I got involved in Nevada. I moved out because I got tired of the cold weather and stuff in the wintertime. And so I moved where there was warm weather and sunshine, and that was Las Vegas. So I did the retail distribution there, but I was president of the Mustang Club fairly quickly. I got involved in open road racing,
Oh,
which was Silver State Classic Challenge. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but a couple times a year it blocked off 90 miles of State Route 318 with all the appropriate sign-offs from the Highway Patrol and, the government and everything. And we worked with city groups and we helped raise a lot of money for charity, but that's another topic. But I was involved with all that stuff. And Carroll Shelby had always wanted to have a production facility near a racetrack where he could test the cars. They decided, Carroll decided to open operations in Las Vegas because he had a friend, Richie Klein, that was helped open the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and they were putting this industrial park in. And so, that whole thing was going on. But when we found out that this guy, Don Rager, who was president of Shelby at the time, and it was a real small company,
what year
um,
would this have been?
this would have been like 90, probably 94, 95.
Okay.
Okay. So probably 94. I invited Don Rager to come to the Mustang Club and speak about Shelby because it looked like they were going to rebirth the company. I mean, it existed, but they were selling Goodyear tires and stuff like that. They weren't building cars since the Dodge days. And so um, Carroll wanted to start up with a continuation Cobra program. And, because all these guys were copying his car. So he figured, well, you know, why not just compete with them, but do it right and do the right things with the right materials and the right designs and all those kind of things. So he wanted to start up the operation. So Don was coming to the Mustang Club to tell us about those things. And that was real exciting stuff. And as an enthusiast, I thought, man, and this guy's president of Shelby. Little did I know at the time that there's like six people in the company. But so, it was like, okay, well, let's see what this is all about. So Don came and he brought a black 427 Cobra. Badass. So we had a great time, blah, blah, blah. So, unbeknownst to me, Don was going to come out to the Silver State Classic Challenge and, look at this open road race thing and bring his Cobra just for display, not running it. But I was chief tech inspector. And so he didn't know very many people, but he knew me from 2 weeks ago. So we became fast friends. He's a car guy. I'm a car guy. We were a big pro Shelby guy, all those kind of things. So, hey, this was outstanding. And so we just hit it off and got along. Well, 2 years later, my job was looking to change, make a change. And I went to leave and I went in to say goodbye to Don and, Shelby and all that stuff. And Don looked at me and he goes, Gary, he goes, you can't leave. And I said, well, I got a family to think about. I got two boys. I was a single parent, but I had two boys to think about. I said, I gotta do what I gotta do. And he says, hey, he goes, I got plans for you. He goes, you can't leave. He goes, tell you what, you go down and start this distribution thing that you want to do in Georgia. You come back in 2 months. I want to talk to you. So I came back in 2 months and I thought, I was a very successful guy in retail distribution. I was on a fast track with my career. Um, but I thought, I can always go back and do that. I'm never going to get a chance to work for Shelby American.
You're
And
right.
whether this works or it doesn't, I'm going to roll the dice. So I went from supervising directly or indirectly 500 people at a distribution center to looking at a box saying, are you going to ship this or not? There was many days, I got to tell you, Greg, where I was like, what have I done?
Well, obviously, it looks like it's worked out very well.
Yeah, so here we are 29 years later, almost 29 years later. And yeah, I mean, the company's certainly had its ups and downs and challenges and stuff like that. But, here we are today. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to be involved with Shelby right from the beginning. And I knew Carroll very well and worked with him the last 16 years of his life. So I knew really how he thought and what he felt about things. And we sat in product planning meetings, and I knew what the his 5-year vision was, and down the road, and got to know his personality. And he was always looking, hey, what's next? What's new? And that was really neat.
So,
So,
can you share a Carroll Shelby story that maybe no one else has heard? It could be something funny you said in a meeting, could be in a dinner somewhere, it could be anything. Is there a fun little Carroll story you could share?
oh, there's a million of those. Some of them we could talk about on TV.
Yeah, this is family friendly. So,
This is family friendly, so we're going to keep that in mind. Um, so I was there for maybe, I'd started to work for Shelby in '96, and I was there maybe for 2 months. And he walks in my office one day and he gets in my uncomfortable space, you know? And when somebody gets into your uncomfortable space, when his nose is like within a foot of mine, that's uncomfortable space to me. That's not friendly talking distance. And Carroll was like that. And he would, when you really got to know him, what he really wanted to know is what you were made of. If you were, good, respectful, you'd have a sense of humor. Could you, you know, play the game? Could you be one of the guys? Or did you treat him like, oh, the great Carroll Shelby? He gets in my uncomfortable space and he says, Gary, he goes, I hear you've been driving my Cobra. I said, yeah, we had it on display out at the Speedway, and at the time we didn't have an office there. It was downtown. He said, I heard you were driving my car 100 miles an hour on the freeway, weaving in and out of traffic. And we actually had a guy that was he was kind of one of those guys that thought he could get ahead in the company if he made you look bad. And he had
right,
told Carol that lie, right? The
right,
truth is, um, the CFO had followed me back, and I did none of that. Okay, I did plenty of shenanigans in a Cobra, trust me, but
sure.
I didn't do it that day or on that freeway that day. And I knew that Carol probably already knew the answer. So I looked right at him and I said, Carol, I said, that's absolutely not true. I was well over 100 miles an hour. And he laughed and turned around and walked out of my office.
Yeah.
After that, we were good.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's great. Well, I do want to get to like what are your Halo cars right now? What are you working on? But first, can you give us a little overview of the interaction and the partnership with Ford? Because I know for folks like me, I'm a Shelby guy, I'm a Mustang guy, and I'm an NCAA judge. I get a little confused in the history. Like, 15 years ago, there was a Shelby GT 350 before Ford made a Shelby GT 350. Like go over that a little bit. Do you get the 350s from Ford now and you turn them into the Shelbys and the KRs and the Super Snakes? Like, how does that process work?
Greg, it's confusing to people because it's done both, right?
Yeah,
So that's why it really is confusing. So, and Shelby's always done different things too. I mean, he was clearly with Ford, and then he went with Dodge for a little bit, and then we made the ground up Shelby Series One, which was a lot of GM parts, but a ground up Shelby. From the frame up, that was a Shelby spec car. Then back with Ford again, and Carroll Shelby had licensed the GT500 name, and after that period of time, eventually in 2015, the GT350 name for a period of time. So Shelby American owns the GT350 and the GT500 brands. Okay, we always have. But occasionally we license that to Ford if there's if the stars align and things go, that's how we do it. If not, we do it ourselves. And so, it's been like anything else. It's kind of keeps running its course, and there'll be times we do it, there'll be times they do it. Currently we're building the GT350s again. So,
so you're building the 350s, and then you also have a partnership, if I'm not mistaken, with Hertz.
well, it's not really, we've built cars for Hertz. The first car we built for Hertz was 1966,
Right.
and there was about 1,000 of those. And it was a great campaign. And people took those cars and they raced them on weekends. And you could see shoe polish on the windshields and stuff like that, where they entered them in speed contests. If you think a few people got ornery and even did engine swaps with their regular Mustang and put the Hypo 289 that was in the rental car into their car. And hey, Hertz didn't know the difference, right? So when we started that program again in 2006, um, we did 500 coupes, and in 2007 we did 500 convertibles, and that really helped Shelby American because largely we had licensed the name GT500 to Ford. We weren't really building much at Shelby at the time, other than continuation Cobras, and we were building continuation Cobras here at Shelby American at the time, but really not in the Mustang RAM at all. So in 2005, we really loved what Ford did with the Mustang, and so we were really jonesing to, do something on that body style. And we talked to Ford about it, but they'd already licensed the name, and they said, "Yeah, we're not real interested." I met with them in September of '05, me and the then president, but they didn't seem like they had a lot of interest. But you know, we owned the brand. We went back and we designed our own car. And we showed it 6 weeks later in the Paxton booth at SEMA, and it had a Paxton supercharger on it. We had our own front fascia that we designed and hood and American racing wheels and bare brakes, and we put some suspension stuff with Eibach. We got a lot of good partners together. We came up with a car, badass. Showed it at the Paxton booth, and the Ford guys came down and they're like, "What are you doing?" We said, "Well, you didn't seem to have an interest, so we're doing it anyway, right?" Well, as luck would have it, Hertz had contacted Ford and said, "Hey, we'd love to do another GT350 Shelby Mustang." And they said, "Well, we don't have the rights to that car, but Shelby's got a pretty cool car." And they let us use the design studio to debut what we had with Hertz.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
so we went to Detroit. We used the design studio. Great time. Ford was super helpful. And Hertz came back, and we had this car we had was a little six-cylinder with a supercharger on it. So the Hertz people said, "We don't want to deal with that. We want a V8." Oh, there you go. We'll do that. The front fascia you designed is super cool, but it won't load off and on our transports that we need to do to ship cars around. Do you have anything else? Ford piped up and said, "Hey, we got this California special front fascia that we haven't even debuted yet. Would you like to buy that from us and put that on the car?" And Hertz said, "If you would do that, then we got a program." So we did suspension and wheels and some other stuff on the Hertz car, but it came back, right? And we did our own hook for the Hertz car and all that kind of stuff in the car. We showed them. And then people loved it. And they said, "We don't want to rent it. We want to own it." And that got us the Shelby GT program in '07. And we built over 5,600 of those cars in '07 and 2,300 cars in '08. We also by '08, Ford, by '07, we'll backtrack a little bit, but Ford had come out with the licensed GT500, and it was a remarkable car. It had 500 supercharged horsepower,
Yeah.
and people were blown away because nobody had something like that in '07. And they looked at us and like, "What are you going to do?" Well, in '67, Shelby took the regular GT500 and they were doing tire testing and things like that. They put a NASCAR basic spec, 427 race kind of engine in one, and they did a lot of testing with that. And they called that the Super Snake. So we used that moniker and we said, "Okay, what can we do to this car to make it a super snake?" And we did wheels and tires and suspension and brakes and a hood, and we put a supercharger on it. We used a Ford Performance supercharger with 605 horse in the convertibles, and you could get it in a coupe too. But the coupes you could also get a Kenny Bell supercharger with 725 horses in 2007. So that's how the Super Snake debuted in 2007. So sorry, all you guys, with the Hellcats at 707 horses, many decades later, we had that in 2007. So anyway,
Yeah.
you got a little poke to the guys. Well, I just love cars, so I like the Mopars. I used to pick up Shelby once in a while in my Corvette just to poke the bear.
Yeah.
But
Well, now don't you have that Shelby snake in your museum on location there?
Yeah, so the Super Snake that we did, the first one in '07, long story behind that. We have that in the museum at Shelby right now.
What about the 67?
The '67 we have in the museum at Shelby right now.
That's one of my favorite cars ever. So I remember seeing that last time I was out there.
Yeah, and the cool thing is I've driven to both. We've got pictures of them out front of the museum, like this with the museum in the background. So you got the '07 or the '67 and the '07, right next to each other.
That's
So
amazing. That's
yeah, it was
awesome.
really cool. And Evan Smith tested that car because they couldn't believe that it was really that powerful. And they took it to for Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords in '07. They took it to Englishtown. That was when they were still based out of the Northeast. Um, and they went to Englishtown, and I was there. And Evan put a set of drag radials on it after he drove the car around for 2 weeks. And he said, "Man," he goes, "this thing's unbelievable." It went 1087 at 134 miles an hour in a quarter mile. And he's like, "Whoa, this thing's badass." So that's how good that car ran that long ago.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That's really cool. So how does Carroll Shelby's philosophy guide you today? Because obviously he's been gone for a long time. How does that guide you in what you do today? I mean, I know it's a little more difficult with EVs. You got the Mach-E, which I know you have a cool prototype, but how do you keep that philosophy vision going forward as the industry changes so much?
Well, Greg, when you got to know Carroll Shelby really well, um, he was an innovator. He was not afraid to try anything new. Um, Most people may not remember, but in the late '60s, Carroll actually came close to racing. The tech inspection people booted him at the last moment. Something about the air inlet was too big. But he had two turbine powered Indy cars. And they actually had those. Those cars exist today and they're in
Oh, wow.
collections,
Yep.
right? But Carroll was all about innovations. And he was like, what's the greatest thing? And Parnelli Jones almost won the overall at Indy in a turbine powered Indy car right before they outlawed him the next year, right? So Carroll was involved in that kind of innovation. In 2003, Carroll partnered with a guy named Jim Heffel in California, and they took one of our continuation Cobras, and they made it run on hydrogen.
Okay.
So it was a big block Ford, but it had an injection system that allowed it to run on hydrogen. So they put the bomb in the trunk. Oh, sorry, the fuel cell in the trunk.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I did that on purpose. Anyway, they put that in the trunk, and so, but I drove the car, um, and it was neat, but it made 30% less power.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, okay, and the range was small. That doesn't mean that hydrogen doesn't have a future at some point, but it means that technology as it existed at that time, it didn't make any sense. So we tabled the program, but there was that. Carroll, we've got him on film in 2011 talking about how excited he was about the future of automobiles and powertrains and how sadly he would likely not be around to see a lot of it. But he talked about electric cars and he said, who knows? You got to try stuff. And we walked Carroll into the museum and we had everything at the time from the first Cobra ever built to other, race cars and things like that. What's your favorite, Carroll? And it was always the next one.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, for a guy that had won, the 24 hours of Le Mans and Aston Martin, he did that as the only person to ever do that. So he won as a driver, he won as a manufacturer with the Daytona Coupes, and then he helped Ford team win, as you guys saw with Ford versus Ferrari. I know you guys have all seen it. Um, they helped him win the overall at Le Mans, take Ferrari off the podium.
Yeah.
That's what the partnership between Shelby and Ford does. It's one of those things that, can't do it without Ford.
Yeah.
They've done some things, but right now, I mean that's really what it was. So to get back to your topic, um, we knew Carroll would be excited when the EVs were all the rage. We said, okay, let's look at this, and we do have a prototype. We showed it at SEMA in 21, I think, the fall of 21. A white car with blue stripes. Imagine that. A completely reimagined front fascia, hood. It scoops air in through the nose, goes through the radiator because you got to cool the batteries in the cooling system, and and it exits that air right out over the hood, just like the Daytona Coupes, the GT40s, the Shelby Series 1, all those kind of things had that kind of design. And if you look at a lot of the modern performance cars today, that's what they use. They use the air coming in and it goes through the radiator and right back out over the hood. And it gives you, some downforce in the nose. It gives you a very efficient cooling system and a very stable car at high speed. So a
Yeah,
winner. But
that's
we looked
awesome.
at it, we drove it at the track. We actually had a Tesla Model 3 several years before that. And a guy loaned it to us. And we said, look, he said, do whatever you want. I said, whatever you want is quite a bit. I said, can we modify the body? Yes. So we flared the fenders. We put slicks on all four corners. We took it to a road course and it was fairly quick for 2 laps. And then it just started going. And it was
Right.
like, okay, so we realized, the shortcomings at the time, and we decided that other than that, we ended up doing about 100 cars for Hertz. But by then, we realized that it just wasn't something that we were going to pursue at this time. We were going to continue to look at new emerging technology, which is what Carol would want us to do. And we are doing that. We're still looking at electric, but we're also looking at hybrids. So there's a real tie-in there, and I think that that's a good future. And with technology, if I told you that we had a car, a few years from now that's got 1,000 miles of range, it'll charge in 5 minutes, it'll last 35,000 charge cycles, and it doesn't take all this mining and stuff to create the raw materials to make the car. Are you interested? Sign
Right.
me up. You
Yeah.
know, if I told you this phone I got, fancy ass phone, right? If I told you I wanted that technology with me at all times 12 years ago, you'd say I was stupid because you'd have to pull it in a wagon behind you. Today it fits in my pocket. So Carroll would be all about the innovation side. He'd be all about trying new things and moving the company forward. We do that today. We're not looking in the past, but we do look in the past. I look at it, Greg, as a view from the driver's seat because I love driving, right? What do you see? Right? The rear view mirror, it's there. It's important. It's this big, and you
Right.
can learn from it, and you should
Yeah.
pay attention to it. But if that's all you do is look in the past, you're going to crash. We're
Yeah.
looking out the windshield. We're
Right.
looking at our future out the windshield and where we're going. We're not just stuck in the past. Shelby American is looking at the next 60 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And I don't know how big it is, but a significant part of your business is the continuation cars, the CSX cars. So I know, for those who do not know, the original 260 cubic inch, 289 cubic inch Cobras were the CSX 2000s, and the 3000 serial number cars were the big block 427, 428s. And then I did a podcast defining the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000s, even 1,000s. But right now, am I correct that you have the 7,000, 8,000s? Break out the CSX a little bit. You've got, the oh, I'm drawing a blank on it. The FIA cars, and then you got the street cars. Is that how it works?
Well, you got to keep doing things. You got to keep
Right.
innovating. So a lot of those cars are very similar to the cars that we did in the 60s. So the small block cars are 3-inch round tube, leaf spring suspension. The big block cars are 4-inch round tube, coil over suspension. That still continues today. We use a little better Heim joints and, steering racks and those kind of things. But, so that kind of still goes. So yeah, that sequences today. So the 4,000s and the 6,000s are actually continuation small and big block cars, right? Okay, so fourth that it's a little confusing. Um, the 7,000s were 289 FIAs, and the 8,000s were the street 289s. What happened to 5,000? Well, we already used CSX 5000s in the Series 1 program we did in 99, which was the ground up car we talked about briefly earlier. So, yeah, that's kind of where the numbers stand. We just came out with a very limited production 10,000 series.
Oh, I
So,
hadn't heard about this. Okay.
yeah, so I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on, and there's a few that we've licensed that are more modernized, but also a significant business right now is our trucks.
Mm,
And in 2013, we started making a few Shelby trucks. Carroll had done it with Dodge in 1989, where they made about 1,500 of the Dakotas, but we got back in the business in 13. We started building with a partnership with Tuscany in 15. And
okay.
so that really exploded the truck market because we had a dealer network now. We had production facilities. We built some trucks in Vegas. We built some trucks in Elkhart, Indiana. And that really has evolved over time. And so, yeah, trucks are about 70% of what we do today. But
70%. Wow. Okay.
yeah, so
Well,
but if you
they're,
look if
yeah,
you look at things, Greg, I mean, how many people own a truck?
right. Yeah,
How many people own a Mustang? You
right.
know,
Yeah.
the balance is very skewed, and people really love the performance trucks. We don't build a lot of them, but the ones we build, they're cool. You
They're
know,
awesome. They're
800
incredible.
horsepower, kind of thing, and off-road, on-road. We've got lifted ones. We got lowered ones. We even do a Shelby version, the new Ford Raptor R.
Mm,
Fabulous truck. Comes from the factory at Ford at a remarkable 720 horses. What could you do with that? Well, let's just put a 3.8 liter Whipple supercharger on it and work the suspension and come up with a hood and a grill and all those kind of things. And the next thing you know, we got over 900 horses, and that's a very conservative number, by the way, in a truck that's just explosive. So
yeah.
we've got a real range of vehicles, and we're always looking at the next ones. That's what Carol would want.
So I can't end this podcast without us talking about the Mustangs, the Shelby Mustangs you have on offer right now. What are kind of the top spec cars that are available for purchase?
Yeah, so the Halo kind of Super Snake, we've got that out there. Um, and that one is just a rock star. 830 horses, soon to be more. But you got to keep pushing the limits. But it's got our own, hood, fenders, front grille, fascia, all those kind of things. It's got hardened wheel studs, things you don't even see, half shafts, exhaust system for Borla, that we, designed together, rear diffusers and side rocker panels, things that we're not just stickers and scoops at Shelby. This thing is heavily contented with, key partners that we've done business with many for many, many years. So we do that. So that's a great car, and that's a car that people have been very familiar. If you weren't familiar in '67, by '07, it really set the mark and really established that Super Snake name and associated that. So when you say Super Snake now, people know it's a Shelby and it's a Mustang and
Yeah,
it's a badass Mustang, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it's a badass Shelby Mustang. Serial numbered, so we have a Ford VIN number and a Shelby VIN number. Those two must match, and we don't publish them together. So that's
Mm,
pretty cool.
yeah.
So that car is still there and it's iconic. We also have stuff in a range around it. So we've got the GT350 again. So we started building that 2020. This year, we're actually in production now. 2025, we came out with a GT350. We showed it at the Barrett Jackson auction. We also showed a GT350R. Both are in production today. Ford's always wanted us to have more involvement around Detroit. So we have a factory just not too far from Flat Rock who is assembling the car that we designed with our hood and our spec suspension and wheels and tires and those kind of things. That is all being built right now in Michigan, but it's basically under our direction. So it's great. GT350s in production now. Small quantities, but a lot of cool content at a price point that's less than a Super Snake.
Mm,
Then you got the Super Snake. Then you've got also a GT350R. So in 65, Shelby came out with a GT350R for the racetrack, and they changed the front fascia so it scooped more air. Little different stuff with carburation and the long tube headers and those kind of things. It was a race car, and they built 36 of them. So we took the 350 that we designed, and we used some components off the Super Snake with hood, fenders, and things like that. We came up with our own wheels, and then we also announced that we are developing a Trans Am race car for next year. In thinking that way, the 350R has spec Alcon brakes that we're going to use in next year's Trans Am car, and a
Wow.
Trans Am style wing, and a carbon fiber tub in place of where the carpet would go, and our own wheels and tires. And we just talked about the brakes, suspension and adjustability, and there's all kinds of stuff in that 350R. And the 350R, all the graphics, the paint on the hood, and where it says Shelby on the back and the fenders and stuff like that, it's all painted on. So
Wow.
this is a
Okay.
high-end car. So that really comes at a price point that's even above where the Super Snake is.
Sure. Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
that's pretty cool. Killer content, limited to 36 for 25. Stay tuned,
Well, yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And this, let's see, it's July. In mid-August, we'll start talking a little bit more about the next one.
Aha, there we go. All right. We can come back and talk about that. All right. So I'm going to do a little rapid fire questions for you here in a second, but what's the best way for the listeners to stay up to date with Shelby American?
You got to go to Shelby.com. So that's an easy one. Um, and that's our, company website. You can look through build ones and those kind of things. We've got a new division, Shelby Performance, that's going to come online next year. Shelby Performance Parts, where you can buy lots of different parts for the newer cars. We have a retail store, so if you want to buy apparel, shirts, hats, things like that. And all kinds of posters and banners and models and those kind of things. We have a retail store, and clearly a catalog kind of business, that's that way too. So you can keep up with all those kind of things. So that's probably the first and best way to do it, is just start there. And then there's all kinds of you know Twitters and podcasts and stuff.
Sure. Everything else. Yeah.
We do things and partner with people like yourself.
Which we appreciate. All
Yeah,
right. You ready for some questions to end the podcast?
you betcha.
All right. What's your favorite Shelby model of all time?
Depends. So I could use the next one, but I can't. So that's Carol's. For me, it's what flavor of the ice cream do you want to eat today? I love ice cream, but I like different flavors of ice cream at different times. So there's nothing like showing up to Cars and Coffee in a 427 Cobra. It makes all the right sounds. It's a badass car. It's iconic. People know what it is. And I own a particular continuation, one of our very early continuation, genuine 427 Shelby Cobras. I also like taking my supercharged Shelby Series 1. People
Yeah.
don't have that car.
No, they
They don't
don't.
even know what it is oftentimes. So if you want to show up with something really cool, really badass, that's a ground up Shelby, show up with that, right? But if you want to go fast, how about, you've got the new Shelby Code Red. That's out there with over 1,300 horsepower.
Yeah.
So that car will run mid eights at over 160 miles an hour if you take that to the drag strip.
If you had to pick one, what would it be?
Like I said, it depends on the day and the time and the application.
How about today for lunch? What would you do?
Today for lunch. Today for lunch, it's hot, it's humid, and so I'd like to have a little air conditioning. So I'd probably drive my 950 horse plus, depends on the tune I push in the steering wheel, could be over 1,000, 2020 GT 500 KR. I would
There we
drive
go.
that car today.
All right. Now, what do you prefer, driving on the track or the street?
I like the track.
Okay.
I like the track because of the controlled environment. I can mix it up with my friends. I can share the experience with friends and people that happen to be in the passenger seat, and we can do a little, you know, say games out on the track and see
Sure. Yeah.
who can put it down and who can't. Because at the beginning of the day, there's a lot of stuff out there. People talk the talk. Can you walk the walk?
Yeah.
Let's see
Yeah.
what you got.
Now, what do you consider the most underrated Shelby vehicle?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Like Series One,
Yeah,
Look Like
you know
Hell, and
what?
some
I think
more?
you hit that pretty good. The Series 1 had a lot of drama at the time. There was some delays in production that we could go on for six more podcasts over that. But at the end of the day, that was a very underrated car. People didn't realize, even Motor Trend tested at one time against cars like Ferrari 430 at the time or 360. I can't remember because I was there. There was a BMW Z8, there was a Cobra R, there was a Viper ACR. This was all back in like 2001, and a turbo Porsche. We could beat those guys. Our 0 to 60, you got to remember, in that time period was 3.7.
Yeah, crazy.
Okay. That was a Shelby Series 1 was 3.7. With a set of road race tires, it was 3.2. I did the quarter mile in 11:35 at our track
Wow.
at
That's incredible.
124 miles an hour. That was faster than the turbo Porsche and the Viper ACR. Those cars were very fast, but that car was good. And I used to take those customers or potential customers, take them out to the racetrack, take them for a ride in the car. And if they were serious about buying one, they signed a contract. That car was cool. And it's still badass, but it's highly underrated because of the controversy. So, things that didn't do well. The convertible top. Yeah, that was really crappy. Basically funneled most of the water on your lap.
I've never seen one with a top up. I know that's for sure.
That's a good thing. But there's pluses and minuses, but that's a badass car. I could really kick butt with it on a road course, and that car was truly underrated for what it was.
All right, I've got two more questions. What is one thing people misunderstand about Carroll Shelby?
I think the innovation part. I
Mm,
think that we get comments all the time. When we came out with a performance pickup or something, oh, Carroll Shelby would never do that. Not true. He actually did that while he was still alive, right? Oh, Carroll Shelby would never do an electric vehicle. No, we have him on film right here talking about those kind of things. I think most people don't realize just how innovative Carroll Shelby was, and how he thought. And I really think that that was true. And it was some of that was in the movie. And it really showcased, and we still do a lot of that kind of stuff today. The computer tells us one thing. You get much further down the road than you could in 1966, right? But today, even if the computer tells us, maybe it doesn't have all the parameters it needs, that you can't beat taking the car, going to the track, running lap after lap, finding out where the failure points are, and continue to refine the product. We got car people running a car company. It's Shelby American today. We're innovative, just like Carroll Shelby would be.
that's awesome. And now, my last question, and probably the most important question. When you saw my 65 Hypo Fastback for sale, did you even have half a thought to possibly buy it?
Actually, no. And I'll tell you why. As much as I revere that car, I love that car. And I'd like to have part of me wanted another hypo convertible. I even tried to track the one down for my father. Um, in fact, my parents are on the way to the house right now. I've got vacation today, so and tomorrow and the next day. But anyway, we're going to go to a family wedding later this weekend in the Northeast. But they're on my way to. My father said, that car was great then, but that was then.
Mm,
And I drove a hypo not too long ago, and quite frankly, it's like, yeah, I want to remember what I remember. And what we're doing today is so cool. And you know
right.
what? I kind of like air conditioning and, brakes that are good more than one stop. those kind of things. And so, I live this thing, Greg, just like you do too, right? You've got a really cool GTO. That's cool.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's a different flavor of the ice cream. Do you want another hypo? Yeah, maybe you do. If somebody showed up with a hypo convertible, maybe I would do that just because of nostalgia with my dad. But yeah, for the most part, I'm looking at what's next. We have in our family, we have the continuation Cobra. We have, I still got the 69 Mach 1. My wife's got the car her father had too, and he's still around, can enjoy it as well, the 68 GT 500 KR. So we've got the old stuff, but we got new stuff too. So that's kind of where we're at. I've got some old, some new, some in the middle. We own the '07 Concept Super Snake. That's in the
Right.
garage too. It's
Nice.
a Shelby's garage right now, but you know it's cool to own that car.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for being on the Clutch a Car podcast. I appreciate it so much, and I've been wanting to have you on for such a long time. I'm glad we were able to finally make it come together.
Well, Greg, I can't thank you enough, and I think maybe this is a new beginning. We should do this on a more regular basis.
Sure, let's do it.
All right, man. Take
Thanks, Gary.
care. All right. See ya.
Born in Texas with a need for speed, raced the wind and lived by creed. Hard condition, but that didn't stall. He built the fastest legends of them all. From Le Mans glory to the desert dust, he forged his name in power and trust. With a cowboy hat and Cobra's hiss, he made American muscle what it is. Shelby's fire still burns today in the roar of a GT through 50s play. From Daytona nights to Texas sun, he showed the world what could be done. Built to race, born to lead. Carroll Shelby planted speed like a seed, like a seed. Started good with a dream and a British frame, dropped in a V8 and changed the game. The Cobra struck with a venomous bite, Ferrari blinked and lost that fight. He tamed the Mustang, gave it might, turned a pony into a street fight night. Ford's secret weapon in '66, that GT40 still gives kicks. Shelby's fire still burns today in the echo of those racing days. With grit and gears and pure resolve, he made machines that won it all. From the track to showroom floors, Shelby Thunder forever roars. He wasn't just a man, he was a flame that lit the path, that changed the game. Told Detroit how to build with soul and chased horsepower like gold. Shelby's fire, you can hear it scream in a super snake, tearing through a dream. Legacy forged in chrome and pride, the man